Okay, so I'm just loading up Premiere Pro here and I'm going to give you an introduction as to how it works. And while it's loading here, I'm just going to show you that on the desktop, I've got a folder called footage that I put some footage in. And where I got that footage from was just to practice. I went to a website called pexels.com, not pixels, Pexels. I joined up and I can get free short video clips. There's tons of them there. You can just pick one. There's the download option. It might ask you um, you can set a link back to this video if you want to, but you can see it's downloading there anyway. So you don't have, some of them ask you to follow them on Instagram. You don't have to, but these are good quality free practice footage. Now they're just clips. They're not no story as such, but they're good for our purposes at the moment. They're absolutely fine. So let's minimize that. In my footage folder, I've got the videos I downloaded. And let's go back to Premiere and see where it's at. So this is the first thing you're greeted with in Premiere. It wants to know what kind of project you want to do. Do you want to do a new one? You want to open one? A team project? We're not going to be doing team projects. So I am going to make a new project. And up here, one of the things that I would say to you about editing is, and if you can take away this, it'll be very important. Asset management is crucial with editing because you're dealing with so many different files. If you don't organize them, it will catch up with you later. So say for argument's sake, I'm setting a project called trailer, and in the location, I'm going to browse and I'm going to go to my desktop. There's my footage folder. I want to put my project in with my footage. Makes sense, but you'd be surprised how many people don't do this. So if I hadn't done that, it would have gone to a default location, which would be fine and everything would work. So I'm going to choose that. You can see everything is going to the desktop and footage. So let's say I had my footage here and I hadn't sent it here, my project to that folder, and I just used whatever was there. The project would work just fine until I deleted this footage or took it away in Drive and then came back and tried to use it and it was gone. So basically everything goes into your folder before it goes into your project. And that means, so if you bring in music that you want to use, that goes in there before you bring it into the project. So you could have a piece of music here on the desktop and drag it into your project, but it hasn't got into the folder. So if you delete it here, it's lost. But if you have it in there, everything is connected. So everything that goes into a folder manages everything. Then the only thing you have to worry about is moving the folder from one place to another. If you have some elements here, some elements in this folder, some elements in this folder, just by accident, it becomes very difficult to manage. So I'm going to OK this. And eventually it will work. All right, so here we go. We're in the Premiere Pro workspace. And you can see you've got several windows here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's your source window, your program, your monitors, your timeline, your toolbar, and your media management kind of section as well. So your source is where you prepare a clip for editing. So you bring in a clip that's say 3 minutes long, you only want 30 seconds of it, you mark it in and out, you put it on the timeline. I'll show you that as we go. Program is here. This is where you watch what you've built down here. Your timeline is where you physically build things. Your audio meters are here, and you'll see these two lines here and then these two separate little boxes at the top. If they light up red, it means your audio is distorting and you might want to look at that. Toolboxes here, if you hover the mouse over any one of them, that's a selection tool, the track select, ripple edit, razor tool, blah, blah. So every editor works slightly differently. I don't tend to use the track select forward or anything like that. There's different ways to do things. Most of these buttons have a little white tag on them, which means that if you hold it down, the drawer opens and there's further tools in there. For the most part, you're going to use the selection tool and maybe the razor tool more than any others. Maybe the pen tool a little bit too. And you see this text and moving stuff there as well. So let's get some footage in. So this is our project trailer bin, because this is why I've set the project to be called trailer. Import media to start. You can double click in here, or if you have the window highlighted in blue, that means it's selected, and you can say File, Import, and then tell it where your footage is, which is here. I'm going to cancel that. I'm just going to double click in here, and then you can direct it to that footage. I've already been there, so I know where it is. So you can see Here's my trailer. That's my Premiere project file. That's this as such. This is the whole thing. And that file in and of itself is very small, 29 kilobytes. An email would be bigger than that. But this file tells Premiere how to assemble all of this footage. So in and of itself, it's not the project. It's the instructions as to how to build everything. So if you took this file to another computer, nothing would happen. You'd have to take all this stuff with it. So I'm going to take all of these. So if I click on the first one, shift click there, then I'm going to go to Command on my Mac keyboard or Control on your PC one and select those two. I basically want to select everything except the trailer itself, and I import it. And there's my files down here. If I hover the mouse over them, you can see it scrubs through them. It'll still probably working them out at the moment. There you go. You can see, you can scrub through and see what the contents are a little bit. I'm not pressing anything. I'm just moving the mouse over them. It'll get a little smoother as we start working with them. So I'm going to take this one. I'm going to double click on it, and it puts it in here, so I can decide how much of this I want to use. So let's bring it back to the start. This is called the playhead, this blue little square thing here. Drag that to the start. It can play it, or I can hit the space bar. And you can see there where it says play, stop, toggle. That means if I hit the space bar, it'll play. If I hit the space bar again, it'll stop. So let's say I decide, actually, you know what, I want from here, I'm going to mark it in, or I could press I on the keyboard, mark it in, space bar, stop. Let's say I only want it there, and I mark it out. I can grab this and drag it down here, and it goes into my timeline. So my timeline has become active now. And now you can see over here, this is what I've built up. This is the clip before I prepared it. This is it on the timeline. If I play it here, see it plays over in the right-hand window. But it only plays the bit that I brought down. Now let's say I decide, you know what, actually I needed a bit more of that. It's all still there. If I go to the start and click and drag, it drags back out the footage that I hadn't included first time around. And at the end, I can drag it back out. This is non-destructive editing. So when I take something onto the timeline, and I've only taken a bit of that particular clip, the rest of it is still there. So I'm going to drag that in. Now I'm going to click this one. And let's say, I don't think there's any audio on this clip. Slightly higher quality, so it's struggling with it a little bit. But we'll stop it there. I'll try a different clip for now. Yeah, it's struggling with the playback a little bit, but that will calm down. I'm going to mark out a bit of this. I don't want all of it. So mark it in, mark it out. I just put a point there where I want to start, and I can press I on the keyboard, or I can press this button here, go to the end where I want it to stop, and I press mark out or O. And I just drag it onto the end. And you see when I get close to it there, it jumps across and locks on. That's because there's a thing called snapping in place. And it just means that two clips will line up beside each other without any gaps. And there's no audio on the second clip. There it's playing back fine. So let's try. Now you can see down here, it looks like I've got two clips of the city itself. Right? That's because when I brought in my first clip onto the timeline, it named the timeline with that. So this is the sequence, and the sequence is this. This file here, you can see this got this little multi-line little icon on it, and this just has a video and an audio element to it. So that's a clip. This is the sequence, and the sequence is what you're building in here. Right? So you can have multiple sequences. Like if you're editing a movie, you might have a timeline that is just the opening sequence, and then another sequence which is the next scene. So you can build it up like that and then just line up all the sequences, but we'll get into that later. But essentially a sequence is this, what you're building here. And this represents it. So let's say you'd finished your film and this is your sequence, this is the whole thing, and you decide, actually, you know what, I want to try this again, I want to try something else. You could right click on this clip and duplicate the sequence and then work on that one. So you can have multiple sequences of the same thing and then just make changes to them so you're not starting from scratch each time. Okay, so let's play it there. So this one has audio attached to it, and you can see if I click on this, if I click on the video, which is that line there, the audio is selected with it. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say unlink. Then audio and video work separately from each other. So I could delete the audio if I want to. So if I just want, now the audio is gone. You can undo it. Command Z, bring it back. But that's only because that's the last thing I did. You can also select them both and relink them if you want to. But generally speaking, you would keep them together, unless there's a very good reason to delete them. And then you could, you would know in the process of making when you want to do that. You could just turn the sound all the way down and keep it there rather than getting rid of it. It's up to you. No two editors work the same way. So in our timeline here, I've got these sliders here which drag me along the timeline. This handle here zooms out so you can see more of it. And this one affects the height of the video. So if you make it higher, you can see these little thumbnails to tell you what the clip is. So bring that back down. I could see a little bit of it. This one brings more of the audio waveform into view. So you can see where the higher peaks of the audio. So you can see here, this is going to get louder here. See, that's where the guy shouts, listen. So he shouts on that bit. So you could, if you wanted to duck that out a bit, you'd know where it was. So back again, play. So I think he speaks here on this line. See that little peak there? That's it. So you can magnify and zoom in on the timeline. If you move your cursor to where these boxes meet, say for instance there, you can drag and make your timeline a bit bigger or your screen's a bit bigger. If you feel that this one needs to be bigger than this one, you just drag from this side. That will slide, get a little bit smaller. And if you decide, actually, you know what, these this box here could be a bit smaller. You want to put the emphasis on your viewing here on your timeline. You could move this all around to where you want it to be. And then if you want to, you could say workspaces, save as new workspace. I'm just going to call it Will's workspace. And save that. And then if I go back in, hopefully this will work and I won't look stupid. I'm going to reset to the saved layout, or sorry, reset workspaces. I'm going to go back to editing. Oh yeah, it's already in editing. But like say for instance, you come in the next day and it's all been moved around on you. Say whoever was using it after you changed the look of it, you could just go back in. I would just put it back to the way you were. So you can record your workspace. Everybody lines this stuff out differently. So that's essentially the workspace layout and just how to get stuff in. So let's say I want to scale this down a bit. Let's see a bit more of the timeline. I put in a new clip, I double click it. Okay, so before it starts to fade, I want to, so I haven't marked in, right? But I'm just going to mark out, and it just gives me everything up to that point. I grab it, drag it down here. Okay, so building up, moving through them. Now let's say, for argument's sake, I've got over here, I've got my project and all of the stuff that goes in there. I'm going to go to effects. And there's video transitions and audio transitions. So video transitions, dissolve, cross dissolve. Let's see if this works. I'm going to drag this from here. Actually, I have to change one thing before I do that. What that is in a minute. So I'm just shortening the end of that clip and the start of that clip, just taking away a bit of space. I'm going to go drag this cross dissolve. See that? If I let the cross dissolve go there, that purple clip will fade out. If I let it go there, one will fade into the other. If I let it go there, the last clip will just fade up from black. I'm going to put it over between the two. Let it go. You see it's put this little cross dissolve symbol in, which I can then make longer or shorter. If I go here, now you see the way that image is a lot smaller there. So I'm going to go back. You see it's got a border around it. I'm going to take this clip here, double click it, puts it back in here for me to edit it from the timeline as such. Now don't worry if you don't feel you'll be able to remember all of this as such, but if you understand what's happening rather than remembering every step in the way, that's more important. So I'm going to go to Effect Controls and Scale. Right? So Scale is here. I'm going to drag that. You see on the right hand side, I'm getting it to fill the screen. So now when I play it, when it dissolves over, it dissolves over to a full screen rather than those boundaries. Those I bring that back to 100. You can see I had those big black bars on it, so this will look a bit better. Now let's get our cross dissolve. I'm going to drag it there. Now you see the way I can't do it on that one. I'll show you why. It's because you need a little extra on the clip, so I need to shorten that a little bit and drag that over there. I'll try it again. Still won't work, and I'll show you why. So I'm using all of this first clip. I need to trim that back a bit because I need to have a little bit that's unused for it to dissolve into. This might be getting a little more complicated than you need to know, but hopefully you'll understand it. So this clip I've brought down, I'm not using all of it at the end. I'm not using all of this one at the start. I've got a little bit to do because when I bring the cross dissolve over, it means it's going to start fading this one out, but it'll still be going in here fading out, and this one is going to start fading in from this side going over to there, and so it needs a little extra on each end to do that with. So now, and if I was to go to audio transitions and go to crossfade, and we'll just use constant power, put that on the audio. See the audio fades out. None of these are permanent. If I click on that and delete it, click on that and delete it, click on that and delete it, now it'll just be cuts. So 90% I would say of what they call the grammar of editing, the language of editing, is cuts. You know, straightforward cuts. And if we were setting this to music, that might influence our choice of cuts. So let's save this. I'm going to say save as. It's going into trailer. It's going into my folder called footage. Save that. It's already in there. I'm going to replace it. So that's closed Premiere. In my footage folder, I'm just going to organize these by kind. I've got my trailer file. It's gone up to about 40 kilobytes now from 29 because I've added stuff to the timeline that includes instructions. But I'm still just using these. I double click on this, it'll open again. And there's my file again. But I've kept everything in the same folder. Let me just check down here. There's my sequence. Double click that, it's back in where I left it. I'm going to do one thing before I go any further. I'm going to say Premiere Pro Preferences Autosave. Now, it's set to save projects every 15 minutes and record the last 20 versions of the thing. I'm going to change that to 5 minutes and OK it. So now it's going to save every 5 minutes, and it's going to save the last 20 versions of this project. So let's say, so 5 20s is 100. So now I'm just over an hour and a half, now 40 minutes of saves. So let's say you're working on something and you go, actually, you know what, half an hour ago, this was fine, and we've gone too far. You can go into your autosave vault, and an autosave vault will appear here after 15 minutes when it saves, or 5 minutes when it saves, and you'll be able to go in there and you'll be able to see the timestamps on all of them and go, actually, there's one that's closest to when we were happy with it, and you can go back in. So this video is there for you to watch and look at again and just, you know, get a sense of the process of setting up a Premiere project and just basic editing just to get you started. Okay, thank you.